Ice Queen and the Gardener. Chapter 1. When Jealousy Kills Love. Arianda stepped off the plane, her hand lifting to shield her eyes from the harsh brightness of the sun. The flight had been long, and she was bone-tired. She blinked a few times, adjusting to the glare, then stepped forward. "Ari!" A familiar voice, soft and urgent. A smile curved her lips. "Ollie!" The joy in her voice leapt across the distance. Arianda quickened her steps, falling into the waiting arms of her sister. They hadn't seen each other in over a decade, but the bond between them had never frayed. Their voices had danced through late-night calls, endless messages, love surviving the distance. Elsie held her tight, then leaned back, eyes wide. "Look at you!" Pregnant and glowing. Arianda's hand instinctively cradled her belly. "Due in 2 months, sis. That's why I'm here." Elsie guided her to the waiting car. The driver took her bags as Arianda settled in. "You have to tell me everything. I'm so excited to be an aunt." Arianda smiled, soaking in the warmth and excitement radiating from her sister. They arrived at the estate, an imposing structure that looked like it had been plucked from the pages of a forgotten fairy tale. Gray stone walls, moss-draped corners, but the garden. Oh, the garden was a rite of life. Roses bloomed in wild devotion. Sunflowers stood tall like soldiers. Tulips and marigolds whispered secrets to the wind. "Ollie, the garden is beautiful. Mother would have been so proud. All her favorites are here. You'll meet the architects soon," Elsie said with a smile, leading her up the grand staircase. "She's incredible at what she does." The door opened. A staff member greeted Arianda warmly, taking her coat. She and Elsie settled into the den, its windows offering a perfect view of the garden. They spoke of the years lost, the stories in between, until Alesia's phone buzzed. She excused herself to take the call. Arianda turned toward the garden, warmth blooming in her chest. She remembered their mother's hands, soil-stained and gentle. 30 years ago, she'd been a child, just 10. Then came the night that shattered everything. The silence, the foster homes, the separation. She had fought like hell to keep her baby sister close. And when she couldn't, she clawed her way through life to make sure Elsie never wanted for anything again. She built an empire from code and chaos. When the world caught up to her genius, she handed the company to Elsie and stepped away. Elsie had run it flawlessly. Arianda had found peace in starting her family. And now, the child in her belly reminded her what it meant to love again, and then her husband got killed by a reckless teenager in a car accident. The door creaked open, snapping her back to the present. Daydreaming again. Guilty as charged. They both laughed. Elsie pressed a kiss to her cheek. "Duty calls. Margaret will show you to your suite. Rest up. Big party tonight." Tonight was Alesia's engagement to Sophie Villiers, daughter of a powerful business partner. Arianda had never met her, though she'd heard much. Elsie sounded happy, but not certain. Something always held back in her voice. Elsie kissed her cheek and left. Arianda wandered outside, drawn to the garden. She let her fingers trail over the blooms, remembering their mother's voice. "Gardens remember those who love them. They seem to feel your presence," said a voice behind her. She turned, startled. A woman stood there, sun-kissed skin, sharp green eyes, red hair like wildfire barely tamed and pulled back. She wore cargo pants and a tool belt, a warrior of soil and bloom. "My mother used to say, if you listen closely, flowers will whisper their secrets." She pulled off her gloves and extended her hand. "Francesca Olivetti, but everyone calls me Frankie." "Arianda De Luca." Frankie turned back to the garden, eyes soft. "Your mother sounded like a wise woman." "She was." Arianda nodded, then excused herself, saying she needed rest. Frankie watched her go, then returned to the shed. Later, Arianda sat in her room, the velvet box in her lap. Rubies and diamonds caught the afternoon sun, casting sparks of light on the ceiling. She smiled at the necklace, meant as a gift for Elsie. Then the door burst open. 2 women stormed in. One yanked the box from her hands. The other slapped her hard. "What the hell?" Arianda's words were silenced by another slap, this time across her lips. "You think you can just take what's not yours?" the blonde woman spat. Arianda gasped as her arms were pinned behind her. "I don't know what you're talking about. Elsie is my fiancé. And you think you can whore your way in." Arianda's mind reeled. Sophie. This was Sophie. She tried to speak, but pain bloomed in her belly as a fist landed hard. I'm Arianda de Luca, Elysia's sister, she cried out. But Sophie didn't hear. Rage had consumed her. Another blow. Outside, Frankie heard the screams. She ran, through the halls into the room, just as Sophie raised her hand again. Stop! Can't you see she's pregnant? Sophie turned on Frankie, snarling. Get out, you filthy bitch. Then, Ari, I'm back. Elysia's voice cut through the chaos. Everything froze. The door flew open. Elsie stood there, her face a storm. She yanked the women away and gathered Arianda into her arms. Her sister was limp, her blood staining Elysia's hands. Get out, she roared. Now! They ran. Elsie ran too, out the door, to the car, to the hospital. Drive! Outside the ER, Elsie stood like marble, whispering through clenched teeth. Please be okay. The nurses tried to move her. She didn't budge. Only the doctor's voice pierced her frozen stillness. She and the baby are fine. We'll keep her overnight. Her knees buckled. A hand caught her. Frankie. Frankie. She breathed. Frankie nodded silently, staying beside her through the blinking monitors, the sterile light, the roar of guilt. When Arianda stirred, she whispered, Ollie, I'm here. I'm here. 1 week later, Arianda and ALC sat in the lounge, watching the garden sway in the breeze. Ollie, can I ask you something? Of course. What's going on with you and Frankie? Elsie blinked. What do you mean? Arianda turned to her fully. Her gaze was calm but piercing. She protected me like you would have, Ollie. She was there. The way you looked at her, it's not just gratitude. Elsie rose, moved to the window. Her heart thundered. The truth itched at the edge of her lips. I know, Ari. I've been thinking of how to thank her. Maybe be honest, Arianda said gently. Start slow. Elsie nodded, her mask slipping. Her sister knew her too well. She always had. And Frankie had become something else entirely. Chapter 2, Scene 1. The absence of Frankie. Weeks after the hospital. The season begins to shift. Winter creeps in. The roses start to bow under morning frost. Frankie has stopped showing up to the house. She's sending her crew instead. Elsie notices. Late morning. Winter's fingers are slipping in. A muted gray coats the estate, and the garden is no longer vibrant, it's waiting. Elsie sat by the tall window, the steam from her coffee long gone, the mug untouched. Outside, the garden was shedding its vibrance. The marigolds had bowed their heads. The roses clung to bare stems like old lovers refusing to let go. Frankie hadn't been here in days. The silence thudded in Elysia's chest like an unwelcome echo. Footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. Arianda entered in one of her oversized cardigans, her baby belly rounding the fabric like the moon rising behind clouds. She looked peaceful, but her eyes were far too knowing. Arianda, gently. You're brooding. Elysia, without looking at her. I'm observing. There's a difference. Arianda smirks. Sure. And I suppose the garden's dying all on its own now? Elsie cracked a faint smile but said nothing. Arianda, sitting slowly. Frankie hasn't been here since last week. Elysia replies. She's busy. Arianda, skeptical. So is the world, but it still spins. A pause. Arianda, softer now. You haven't spoken to her since that night, have you? Elysia's jaw tensed. Elysia sighs. She's a gardener. Arianda, gently. No. She's the woman who stood between a monster and me while I was bleeding. The woman you couldn't stop looking at in the hospital, and she's the only one who's ever seen you break and didn't flinch. Elsie, quietly, that's exactly why I'm afraid. Elsie inhaled sharply. Not enough to break. Just enough to crack. Elysia, defensive. And it's complicated. Arianda, softly. Only if you let it be. Love's not a corporate merger, Ollie. It doesn't come with clauses and shareholders. Elsie turned, finally meeting her sister's eyes. Elysia sighs. I've made so many wrong calls in my life. I chose Sophie because it made sense. For the business. For appearances. Frankie, she doesn't make sense. She makes everything feel. She stopped herself. Arianda asks. Real. Elsie didn't answer. But she didn't deny it either. Chapter 2, Scene 2. The shed, the soil, the truth unspoken. Afternoon. Ailsie drives to the edge of the estate. The gardener's shed is tucked behind a curtain of winter strip trees. Frankie's truck is parked beside it. The tires of the SUV crunch against gravel as Ailsie pulls to a slow stop. Her hand rests on the steering wheel longer than it should, knuckles white. She stares at the little building tucked between trees, wooden, moss-kissed, draped in vines that still remember summer. The windows glow faintly golden from inside. Music leaks out, Lucio Battisti, or something that sounds like heartache with a violin. She gets out. The cold bites. She ignores it. She hesitates before knocking and steps inside the cabin. Frankie is hunched over a workbench. Her hair is tied back, but flyaways glow like embers in the light. She's sharpening pruning shears, the blade glinting as she works. There's soil on her fingers, a smudge of green on her cheek. She doesn't turn around. Frankie says, "I thought I told your driver to stop delivering things here." Ailsie, quietly, "I didn't come to deliver anything." Frankie pauses. The whetstone stops. Frankie, still facing away. "Then why are you here?" Ailsie answers, "Because you're not." Silence. Long, sharp silence. Frankie finally sets down the shears, wipes her hands on a towel. Then she turns. Her eyes meet Ailsie's. Emerald wildfire, calm on the surface, storm beneath. Frankie responds, "I've been working. The frost came early." Ailsie, a bit frustrated, "That's not what I meant, and you know it." Frankie, sharply, "Then maybe be clear." For once, the air thickens. Ailsie takes a step forward, then stops. Ailsie, softly, "I can't stop thinking about you." Frankie's brow arches, skeptical, tired, and then says, "That's dangerous talk from someone who said yes to a Villiers." Ailsie whispers, "I said yes to obligation, to safety. But you feel like falling off a ledge I can't stop walking toward." Frankie, looking at her, "Maybe I don't want to catch you this time. It's not cruel, just real, just wounded." Ailsie swallows the lump in her throat, and with a whisper says, "I didn't come here to beg. I came because I owe you the truth. You've always seen me, but I never let myself really look back. Until now." Frankie steps closer, but only one step. Frankie, low, "And what do you see now, Ailsie?" Ailsie whispers, "You." That one word hangs between them, a whisper wrapped in thunder. Frankie looks at her for a long moment, eyes flicking between her lips, her eyes, her trembling hands. Then she steps back and says, "You don't get to say that in a shed full of silence and expect the world to change." Ailsie nods, defeated but not retreating, her voice trembling. "Then I'll keep showing up until the world does." She turns to leave. Frankie, after a pause, "You smell like roses." Ailsie stops in the doorway. Frankie, softer now. "And winter. That's a dangerous combination." Ailsie turns her head slightly, enough for a smile to ghost her lips. Ailsie, smiling, "You should know. You planted both." She walks out. Frankie stands there, shears in hand, staring at the empty doorway. The music plays on. Chapter 2, Scene 3. The knock at midnight. The wind moves through the trees like a whisper too shy to speak. The stone path crunches under Ailsie's boots. She's in leggings, a long coat, a scarf flung over her shoulders like she left in a rush or needed to move before she could change her mind. The estate is quiet, cloaked in stillness. Ailsie stands outside the gardener's cottage, a soft light flickering inside like a secret refusing to die. It's not raining, but it feels like it should be. The porch light flickers to life as she steps onto the first step. She doesn't knock immediately. She breathes. Then she lifts her hand and lets it fall against the door. One knock. Firm. Then silence. Frankie opens the door in sweatpants and a black tank top, her hair loose, damp at the ends. She was either in the shower or just out of sleep. The light behind her is soft amber. The room smells like cedar, citrus, and something sweet, like fresh wood shavings and coffee grinds. They stare at each other. No words. Ailsie's breath catches. Her voice is fragile when it comes. "I had nowhere else I wanted to be." Frankie says nothing, but she steps aside. Ailsie enters. Ailsie stands awkwardly in the center of the room. She looks smaller somehow. like she peeled off a layer of armor and left it at the front door. Frankie hands her a mug of tea. Their fingers brush, accidental, electric. Frankie, quietly. You look like hell. Alesia, half laugh. Thank you. You always had a gift for romance. Frankie, quickly. No. You just don't hide well when you're unraveling. And you? You hide too well. I never know what you're thinking, Elsie responds. Frankie leans against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, and says, You never needed to know. You were always chasing something else. Power. Legacy. Control. All I had to offer was dirt and devotion. Elsie takes a sip of the tea. It's honeyed. Sharp. Like Frankie. Before saying, Then why did you always stay? Frankie looks away for the first time, and her voice trembling when she spoke. Because even when you didn't choose me, I wanted you to have something beautiful in your life. Something you didn't have to control. Just let grow. Alesia whispers. I didn't know how. Frankie turns back, eyes softening, almost whispering. And now, Alesia looks down before she says, I'm still learning. But tonight, I didn't want to be alone with the ghosts. A pause. A beat too long. Alesia, quietly. Can I stay? Frankie studies her for a long moment. Frankie, softly. Stay where? On the couch? In the bed? In my life? Alesia's breath catches. I don't know what comes after this, but I'm tired of pretending I don't feel something every time you look at me. Frankie, a murmur. Then stop pretending. They stand there, both breathing harder now. Not from desire, yet, but from the weight of what they've carried and never named. Elsie takes a step forward, then another. She's inches away now. Alesia, barely audible. You made me feel like a person. Not a product. Not a name. Frankie lifts her hand, brushes a lock of hair from Alesia's cheek, then says, And you made me feel like, maybe I wasn't invisible. The distance evaporates. Their lips meet, gently at first. No hunger, no haste, just truth, slow and shaking. Alesia's hand finds Frankie's wrist. Frankie's hand rests at Alesia's waist. When they pull back, there's silence. Then the smallest, most vulnerable smile from Elsie. Alesia exhaling. I've never kissed someone like that before. Frankie, low, steady. Then we start there. They hold each other in the quiet, while the wind hums its lullaby outside. Chapter 2, Scene 4. Morning light and fragile lines. Early morning. The cottage is quiet. The fire has died down. Only the soft light of sunrise spills across the floor. Elsie wakes up in Frankie's bed. The first rays of sunlight pierce through linen curtains, painting golden stripes across the bed. Elsie stirs. Her hand reaches across the mattress, slow, searching. It lands on cold fabric, empty sheets. Her brow furrows as she sits up. The room still smells like Frankie, rosemary, soil, something spicy and clean. She blinks, looking around. Her boots are still by the door. Her coat hangs on the back of a chair. The fire is embers now. She wraps the blanket around herself and pads softly into the next room. Frankie stands at the sink, wearing a hoodie and jeans, barefoot, sipping from a chipped mug. She doesn't turn around immediately. The radio hums faintly. Something soft. Something old. Elsie stops in the doorway, one hand holding the blanket around her. Alesia, quietly. You left. Frankie finally turns. Her expression unreadable, but her eyes, oh, they give her away. They're tender, cautious, stormlit. You were sleeping. I didn't want to wake you. A beat. Elsie crosses her arms, more for protection than defense. Alesia, softly. I thought maybe it was just one night for you. Frankie looks at her fully now. The words falling out. Did it feel like one night? Silence. Sharp and soft at the same time. Alesia, barely above a whisper. No. It felt like the first breath I've taken in years. Frankie places the mug down. And begs almost. Then don't ruin it by running. Elsie takes a slow step forward, the blanket falling slightly off one shoulder. Her vulnerability is showing, and for once, she lets it, and says, I've never done this before. Never felt like. I was standing on the edge of something real and not pretending. Frankie, softer. You were always pretending. Until last night. They're close again. Inches. Alesia uncertain. What happens now? Frankie hesitates. Then says, you figure out what you're willing to lose to keep what's true. Because people like us, we don't get easy love. We get earned love. And it costs. Alesia's eyes flicker. What if I'm willing to pay? Frankie gently. Then you better be ready to burn the house down, baby. Because nothing in your life will look the same after this. A pause. Elsie looks at her hands. The life she built. The image. The empire. All of it balancing on a choice. She looks up at Frankie. Her voice stronger now. Then light the match. Frankie's breath catches. Frankie whispers. Say that again. Alesia's voice is certain when she says, I'm not asking for forever. Not yet. But I'm not pretending anymore. You matter. This matters. And I'm done living like I don't have skin in the game. Frankie steps forward, brushes her thumb against Alesia's jaw, the kind of touch that says I see you. All of you. You've always had skin in the game. You just never let yourself bleed. And then another kiss. This one isn't hesitant. It's a promise wrapped in risk. The roses have frost at their edges, but one new bloom has opened. Red. Proud. Alive. Chapter 2, Scene 5. A sister's sight, a silent blessing. It's late morning. Arianda is in the sunroom wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea resting against her belly. The light dances through the glass, flickering on her skin. Elsie returns home, lighter, changed. Arianda feels it before a word is spoken. The air smells like jasmine and peace. The front door creaks open in the distance. Then footsteps. Elsie enters the room, her scarf slightly askew, her hair windswept, her cheeks flushed. She looks unguarded, different, soft in places she's always kept armored. Arianda doesn't even lift her head. Arianda murmuring, You didn't sleep here last night. Elsie pauses by the door. Alesia hides her face. I needed space to think. Arianda finally looks up, directly into her sister's eyes. Arianda smiles. No. Softly, with a knowing smile. You needed space to feel. Elsie walks in, stands beside the chair but doesn't sit, and then says, It wasn't planned. Arianda, knowingly. The best things never are. Was it her? Elsie swallows. Nods. Alesia quietly. Yes. Arianda closes her book, sets it gently aside, and asks softly, Is that why you're standing like you're waiting to be scolded? Because if it is, sit your ass down, Ollie. That makes Elsie laugh, a real laugh. She sinks into the chair across from her, suddenly feeling 17 again. Alesia admits, I don't know what I'm doing, Ari. I kissed her like I meant it. I stayed like I belonged there. I let her see me, and I didn't run. Arianda, quickly. Good. Elsie blinks. Alesia frowns. That's it. Just good? Arianda smirks. You want a parade? I'm 8 months pregnant. The only thing I can march is to the bathroom and back. They both chuckle. A moment of light in all the weight. Arianda softly. Listen, Ollie. I've seen you rule boardrooms. I've seen you pull us out of the grave. But I've never seen you look the way you did when Frankie walked into that hospital room. Alesia surprised. I didn't even notice. Arianda unwavering. I did. Your armor dropped like it didn't matter anymore. She steadied you and you let her. You never let anyone steady you. Elsie stares at her sister, eyes glossing just a little. Alesia hushed. She scares the hell out of me. Arianda gently. Then, maybe she's exactly what you need. Elsie leans forward, elbows on knees, eyes searching. Alesia scared. And if I mess it up? Arianda certain. Then you own it. You show up again. You make space. But you don't disappear, Ollie. You don't ghost love just because it shows up wearing overalls and smells like rosemary. A beat of silence. Then, Arianda smirking. Also, she's hot. If you let her get away, I might just seduce her myself after this baby's born. Elsie lets out a laugh through her tears. Alesia smiles. You're impossible. Arianda mocks. I'm your sister. They sit in the warmth, a little quieter now. But inside them both, something has settled. Something real. Frankie is planting winter tulips in the frost-hardened soil. She looks up as Elsie steps outside, walking toward her. No hesitation this time. Chapter 2, final paragraph. The air between them shifted, not with grand declarations, not with dramatic vows or stolen kisses, just the soft crunch of frost beneath boots. Just the quiet way ALC knelt beside Frankie in the dirt, unafraid of the soil beneath her fingernails. They worked in silence, planting, pressing, breathing, and somewhere between the winter tulips and the thawing sky, two women began to bloom. No fireworks, no fanfare, just two hearts, finally beating in rhythm. Chapter 3, Scene 1. The knock. The sun lays golden on the roses. Frankie is crouched in the soil, pressing a sprig of lavender into place. ALC leans on the iron railing of the veranda, watching her. For once, her phone is nowhere near her. ALC smiles. Alesia softly. You look like you're painting with dirt. Frankie, without looking up. That's because I am. Beat. And you're staring like you've never seen something grow. Alesia, teasing. I haven't. Not like this. Frankie glances up. They share a look, thick with what was left unsaid the night before. The tension is softer now, no longer a rope around the throat, but a thread between hearts. A hum of peace, and then, tires on gravel. Alesia's head snaps toward the driveway. 3 black luxury sedans crawl in like shadows with engines. Frankie stands up slowly, wiping her hands on her jeans. Frankie looks at her. Friends of yours? Alesia coldly. That depends. If they brought wine, maybe. The first car stops. The back door opens. Out steps a man. Tall. Silver haircut precise. Immaculate suit. His presence screams money, power, and someone who eats silence for breakfast. Cassius Villiers. Father of Sophie. Old money venom in a Versace bottle. 2 lawyers emerge behind him. 1 female, 1 male. Neutral expressions, like calculators in human form. Frankie steps slightly closer to ALC but doesn't touch her. He looks at them before greeting. Miss DeLuca. Alesia spats the word out. Villiers. A beat. To what do I owe this entirely unwanted visit? Cassius, smiling like a blade. I thought it was time we had a conversation. Face to face. About the scandal that seems to be brewing. About my daughter's name and the company her family helped you build. Alesia, fire in her words. Your daughter assaulted my pregnant sister. Maybe let's start there. Cassius smirks. Allegedly. She was emotionally unstable, as anyone would be, watching the woman she's about to marry. Sharp glance at Frankie. Slinking around with help from the greenhouse. Frankie stiffens. Alesia's voice is ice now. Alesia forces the words out. You should leave, before I forget that I ever considered you a partner. Cassius, stepping closer. Oh, I'm not here for partnerships. I'm here for the shares. The one Sophie holds. We're dissolving the engagement, and as part of the separation agreement, those shares revert to the family, along with any brand control, press management, and public board votes. Alesia mocking. Cute how you think I'll sign that. Cassius, self-assured. No need for you to sign anything. A scandal and a stock crash will do it for us. The court of public opinion is already watching, and Sophie? Well, she's quite the wounded darling when she cries. Frankie steps forward now. Frankie, low, sharp. You threatening her on her own land? Cassius, smirking. I'm merely forecasting. Some plants don't survive winter. Some reputations either. Elsie takes a slow step forward, toe-to-toe now. Alesia, deadly calm. Tell Sophie she can have her name. She can have her tears. But if she or you come near my sister again, I will bury you so deep the family tomb will look like a penthouse. Cassius's smile doesn't fade, but his eyes narrow. Cassius, to the lawyers. You heard her. Unreasonable. We'll let the media and the markets decide. He turns. The black cars begin to pull away. Tires churn gravel like warning growls. Frankie watches until the last car disappears. Alesia's hands are clenched. Her jaw set. Frankie, softly. You okay? Alesia, too quickly. I'm fine. Frankie, softly. That's not what I asked. Elsie says nothing. Just walks toward the garden gate. Frankie watches her go, the weight of the world slowly crawling back onto her shoulders. The peace. It just shattered. Chapter 3, Scene 2. Cracks in the garden. The air is cooler now. The roses sleep in shadow. Elsie sits on the old wrought iron bench near the fountain, legs crossed, arms tight around herself. A half-full glass of red wine rests on the stone ledge beside her. She stares at the fountain but sees nothing. Footsteps crunch on gravel. Frankie appears. She's changed out of her work clothes. Still casual, still Frankie, but there's a quiet sharpness in her jaw, in the way she walks. Frankie's voice steady. You disappeared. Elsie doesn't turn. Elysia harsh. You didn't follow. Frankie angry. I'm not a hound on a leash, Elsie. I'm someone who gives a damn. Elsie sighs, still doesn't look at her, and says, I didn't ask you to care. Frankie stops. That one lands. Frankie, accusing almost. No. You didn't. But you let me. A long silence. The fountain bubbles softly, the only sound between them. Elysia tired. It was easier when everything was controlled, when feelings stayed locked in boxes and no one knew where the keys were. Frankie, softly, firmly. You kissed me like you were dying, and I was the heir. Don't act like this was some passing mistake you're trying to sweep back under your empire. Elysia, snapping. That's exactly what this is. A passing moment that the world is already trying to turn into scandal. I can't afford a weak spot right now. Frankie, surprised. You mean me? You think I'm the weak spot? Elsie finally turns to her. Eyes sharp, glassy, and whispers, No. You're the one part one can't control. Frankie, voice breaking. That's not weakness. That's real. A beat. Too many words unsaid. Too much emotion damn near choking them both. Frankie, quieter now. You don't get to pull me in, and then push me away just because the suits showed up. I'm not part of your negotiation. I'm not another acquisition. Elysia harshly. Then don't be. Walk away. Frankie takes a single step back. Breath caught. Frankie, cold now, slow. If that's what you want, say it like you mean it. Elysia, after a long pause. I can't do this right now. Frankie nods. No drama. No pleading. Just pain. Frankie hides the pain. That's what I thought. She turns. Begins to walk away. But before she's gone, Elysia, soft, almost begging. Frankie. Frankie stops, but doesn't look back. Elysia, barely audible. I don't know how to do this without ruining it. Frankie, quietly over her shoulder. Then learn. Before I'm gone for good. And she walks into the dusk, swallowed by shadow. Elsie stays on the bench. Alone again. The fountain bubbles. Somewhere inside, a glass shatters. Chapter 3, Scene 3. Water breaks, walls crumble. The estate. Night. A storm has rolled in. Rain lashing against the windows. Thunder clawing at the sky. The house is dark and too quiet. Inside, Arianda's body makes a decision no one else is ready for. Rain pelts the windows like urgent fingers. Thunder rumbles in the distance. A low growl crawling closer. Arianda lies on the bed, her hands tracing the swell of her stomach. She's been uneasy all evening, waves of discomfort rolling through her body like tremors. She's alone. Elsie is still outside. Frankie is gone. Even the staff seem to have vanished under the weight of the storm. She exhales and shifts to sit up, but her breath catches. Her belly tightens, then releases, then again sharper. A flicker of panic in her eyes. Arianda whispers, No, not now, not tonight. She stands slowly, one hand braced on the dresser. Her feet hit the floor, and water spills down her legs. She gasps. Her hand flies to her belly. Arianda, shock. Oh my God. She stumbles forward, gripping the doorframe, trying to call out. Arianda, shouting, pained. Ollie. Ollie, something's happening. No answer. A bolt of lightning flashes, illuminating the hallway outside her door. Her knees buckle. Arianda, sobbing. Not alone. Not like this. She falls against the wall, breathing ragged, cramping now pulsing deep in her back. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Familiar. Frankie bursts into the hallway, soaked to the bone. She stopped to grab her jacket but hadn't yet left the estate grounds. Something pulled her back. She sees the wet trail on the floor. Then sees Arianda, pale, slumped, one hand gripping her belly, the other clawing for support. Frankie rushing forward. Ari. Jesus, what happened? Arianda, barely coherent. Baby coming too early. Frankie drops beside her, arms instantly catching her weight. Frankie, urgent. Okay. I got you. You're not alone. We're going to the hospital. Now. She lifts Arianda carefully, fast but gentle. Arianda cries out in pain. Arianda, pleading. Don't tell Ollie yet. She has too much. Frankie, cutting in. Screw that. She'll want to kill me if I don't tell her. She fumbles her phone, pressing call with her shoulder as she carries Arianda down the stairs. The line rings. Elsie is still on the bench, rain soaking her hair. The phone vibrates. She answers without looking. Elysia flat. What? Frankie, voice exploding from the line. It's Arianda. Water broke. Early. We're going to the hospital now. Elsie freezes. Frankie, on the phone, panting. She's in real pain, Lysia. You need to meet us there. The call ends. Frankie loads Arianda into the back of the car, barking orders at the driver. The vehicle peels away into the storm, Arianda groaning through a contraction, her hands clutching the armrest in Frankie's steady grip. Arianda panting. I'm scared, Frankie. Frankie, softly. I've got you. We're almost there. Just breathe with me, okay? In and out. Outside, lightning forks the sky. Inside, something ancient is being born. A mother. A family. A reckoning. Chapter 3, Scene 4. Racing against time. Rain-slicked roads, a speeding car, the yard glowing like a lighthouse. Elysia's phone won't stop screaming. The Empire is shaking. And in the middle of it all, her sister is in labor. Now she has to choose. Power or presence. Mask or marrow. Elsie sits in the back of the car, soaked, tense, trembling. Her driver glances nervously in the rear view, speeding through the storm. The roads are slick. Windshield wipers slice through the downpour like a metronome for panic. Elysia's phone is vibrating nonstop in her lap. Ping, 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 ring. Notifications flood in. Breaking. Tech-era scandal. Sources say fiancé assaulted pregnant woman at estate. DeLuca shares dip 7% after Villiers family comments. Board members call emergency session. She scrolls with one hand, the other clenched so tightly her knuckles have gone white. Elysia muttering. Bastards. Leaking it now. They timed this. She tries to call her lawyer. Voicemail. Taps another contact. Voicemail. She throws the phone on the seat beside her. The hospital glows ahead like a pale mirage. Frankie is pacing. Her wet clothes stick to her frame. Her hands are trembling, but her eyes are clear, fierce. Elsie bursts through the doors. They see each other. Frankie moves toward her but stops short, Frankie's voice wavering. She's in there. They've taken her to delivery. It's too early, but the baby's okay so far. They're monitoring both. Elsie nods, frozen. Frankie, lower now. She kept asking if you were coming. Elsie starts to speak, but her phone rings again. Loud in the sterile quiet. Board chairman flashes on the screen. She hesitates. Frankie, disbelieving. Don't you dare answer that. Elsie silences the call. Puts the phone in her pocket. Elysia hoarse. I'm here now. Frankie stares at her. Frankie questioning. But for how long? Elsie breaks. Her hands cover her face. Elysia muffled. I can't lose her. I can't lose everything. Frankie soft. What is everything, Lysia? Because from where I'm standing, you already have. Silence. Thick. Real. Frankie turns to leave the waiting room. But Elsie, voice shaking, calls out. She's all I have left. She raised me. She built the empire to give me everything. And now the only thing I can give her is showing up. Frankie turns. Stops. A nurse steps out through the double doors. Nurse at Elsie. Miss DeLuca. She's asking for you. Elsie doesn't hesitate this time. She walks past Frankie. Straight through the doors. Arianda is pale, sweating, tears mixing with effort. She sees her sister, and the sob that breaks from her isn't pain. It's relief. Arianda, breathless. You came. Elysia, grabbing her hand. Always. The monitors beep in rhythm. The storm roars outside, and as Arianda pushes through the contractions, Elsie never lets go. Outside, Frankie stands by the window. watching the glow of the delivery room. One hand on her chest, and slowly the ache softens. Because maybe, just maybe, Elsie is choosing right. Chapter 3, Scene 5. A new life, a new choice. The hospital room, just before dawn. Arianda has delivered. The storm has passed. But inside, emotions are raw, fresh, and sacred. There is peace, but it's asking for truth to sit at its table. A soft pink hue filters through the curtains. The storm has passed. Only the faint drip of rain remains, like the sky exhaling. Arianda lies in the hospital bed, pale but glowing in that new mother way. Tired, euphoric, blood and love stitched into her skin. Elsie sits beside her, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She hasn't slept. She's just watched. The baby rests in Arianda's arms. Tiny, perfect, wrapped in white. Arianda, smiling, whispering. She's gonna be okay. Alesia, eyes softening. She already is. Because you're her mother. They both fall quiet, watching the baby breathe. After a moment, she says, "You've changed, Ollie." Elsie tenses. Arianda, gently. "It's not the company. It's not the scandal. It's her. Frankie." Elsie looks away. Her hands clench in her lap. Alesia, defensive. "She doesn't want anything to do with me." Arianda's voice is certain. "She was the one who caught me when I fell. She didn't leave, even when she was angry, even when you left her in that garden like she didn't matter." Elsie flinches. Arianda, holding the baby tighter. "You know what it's like to fight for someone." "I do. I fought for you my whole life. And I'd do it again, because love doesn't come with guarantees. But it does come with choice." Alesia's throat tightens. Her eyes shimmer. Alesia, voice low. "I don't know how to give her the parts of me I buried. I built walls so high, I forgot where the door was." Arianda smiles faintly and says urgently, "Then let her help you dig. But you need to be the one to knock." She lifts the baby. Arianda, softly. "Wanna hold her?" Elsie hesitates. Arianda pushes. "She's family, Ollie. She's yours too. But you need to show her who you are. Not the empire. Not the mask. You." Elsie reaches out, arms trembling. She holds the baby. Her breath catches in her throat. The weight is featherlight. But the meaning, crushingly beautiful. The baby opens her eyes. And for a second, Elsie forgets power, lawsuits, stock dips. There's only this. A heartbeat. A beginning. Alesia's voice cracks into a whisper. "I don't want to lose any more time." Arianda smiles, eyes glassy. Arianda, softly. "Then go." She's still here, but not forever. Back at the estate, Frankie is loading her gear into the back of her truck. She moves slow, tired, resigned. She climbs into the front seat, turns the key, and stops. Elsie stands in front of the truck. No umbrella, hair wild from the wind, eyes wide open. Alesia, breathless. "I don't have a speech. I don't have promises. I only have one thing to offer." Frankie lowers the window. Alesia, quietly. "Me. Not the version the world wants. The one who stood beside you in the storm. The one who kissed you and meant every broken, burning part of it. Stay." Frankie stares at her. Then, she gets out of the truck, walks right up to her, and without a word, kisses her. It's not the first kiss, but it's the one that says everything. Chapter 4, Scene 1. The quiet before. The estate, early morning. A hush sits over the house like held breath. Arianda has returned home with her newborn. The garden is in bloom. Frankie works in the distance. Elsie watches. The fog hasn't lifted yet. The garden is hushed, cloaked in dew and golden light. Sunflowers stretch. Roses tremble in a breeze. It feels like the world is giving them a moment, just one to breathe. Arianda sits in the rocker near the window, her newborn sleeping on her chest. Her face is still pale, touched with exhaustion, but her eyes glow. She hums softly, a melody from childhood, one their mother used to sing while tending the garden. Frankie passes the window below, glances up, smiles. Arianda nods back. Peace. Elsie stands at the stove. Yes, the Elsie de Luca, the woman who once ruled boardrooms like a sovereign, is making toast. Frankie enters, slightly damp from the garden. Frankie dry. Toast! Are we celebrating or surrendering? Alesia without turning. You'll know which when you taste it. Frankie chuckles quietly. Elsie finally looks at her. Alesia, softer now. Thank you for staying. Frankie smiles. I almost didn't. A beat. Frankie shrugs. But the garden needed me. And you. You looked like someone who needed something real. Alesia's eyes fall. She turns off the stove. Alesia, honest. I didn't know how much I needed real. Until it was bleeding on my floor. Just then a knock at the back door. Sharp. Uninvited. Frankie moves to answer, but Elsie lifts a hand. She opens the door. A courier stands, expression blank. He hands over a thick envelope. White. Heavy. Cold. Courier. For Miss DeLuca. Legal service. Signed, sealed. He doesn't wait for acknowledgement. Just leaves. Elsie shuts the door slowly. Frankie watches. Frankie, dry again. That's not toast-worthy, is it? Alesia, quiet. No. This is war. Arianda's eyes scan the letter in silence. Her arms instinctively tighten around her baby. Arianda, almost breathless. False identity. Manipulation for financial gain. Physical assault denied. No proof. Fabricated. She looks up. Calm. Too calm. Arianda to ALC. They're calling me a liar. A criminal. And they're threatening to take her away. The baby stirs softly. Elsie sits jaw tight. Frankie paces like a lioness on the edge of snapping. Alesia responds sharply. We'll burn their lies to ash. I'll call the attorneys. Media. Private security if I have to. Frankie, cutting in. No. Not just war. We need truth. And someone to carry it. Bold. Public. Loud. They all turn to Arianda. Frankie, softly. You're not just the victim, Ari. You're the story they tried to bury. Let's make them choke on the roots you've grown. Chapter 4, Scene 2. Paper daggers. A media whirlwind erupts. Legal teams swirl. The Villiers weaponize their power. Arianda and ALC are painted as frauds. Frankie watches closely, realizing something deeper. This isn't just a scandal, this is a hunt. But no one realizes yet the prey has claws. ALC sits at her desk. Her sanctuary. Now it's a war table. Screens flash in front of her. News broadcasts. Tweets. Articles. News anchor on screen. Sources say the DeLuca heiress is involved in a fabricated assault case, possibly orchestrated by her estranged sister to manipulate a multi-million rand marriage settlement. Alesia's jaw flexes. Anchor continued. The Villier family has released a statement calling the allegations deeply tragic, utterly false, and born of personal bitterness. A photo appears. Sophie. A black eye barely there. Makeup slightly smeared. Fabricated. Staged. A performance. News anchor continued. Villier family attorney says Sophie is recovering out of the public eye and requests respect for their privacy. Elsie shuts the screen off. She stares at her reflection in the blank monitor. Alesia to herself. This is what silence costs. Later in garden. Frankie walks alongside Arianda. The baby is asleep in a carrier against Arianda's chest. Arianda quietly. I thought I could handle it. But they're rewriting the truth in real time. I'm tired of being quiet. Frankie stops, looks at her, and says, Then speak, before your silence becomes their truth. Arianda looks toward the house. Arianda, softly. I want to, but I'm not ALC. I don't command a room just by breathing. Frankie touches her arm. Frankie, soft but sure. No. You command it when you bleed without flinching. That's the kind of strength that terrifies men like the Villiers. A pause. Frankie continues. And the kind that will save your sister. Later that night in the boardroom, ALC sits at the head of a table. Her board surrounds her. Men in suits. Women with tight eyes and tighter lips. All speaking rapidly. Board member 1. This scandal is costing us. The Villiers are cutting ties. Half our international investors are threatening to pull out. Board member 2. You need to release a statement distancing yourself from your sister. And from this, Gardner. Alesia's eyes flicker up. Calm. Lethal. Her words cutting through them. Her name is Francesca Olivetti. And she risked her life for mine. Board member 1, flatly. It's not personal, Miss DeLuca, it's business. Elsie leans forward, her eyes blazing and her voice lethal. Then let me make this business personal. My sister was attacked in my home while carrying my niece, and I will not sacrifice family for profit. Tense silence. Board member 2 warning. This will be the hill you die on. Elsie rises. Alesia, cold fire. Then let them build my monument in fire and thorns. She walks out. Back at the estate, Frankie is staring at her phone. An anonymous message lights up the screen. Text message. You picked the wrong side, Olivetti. You'll fall with them. Frankie doesn't flinch. She deletes it. Looks out the window, where the moon bleeds silver over the garden. She whispers to herself, then let me fall. But not quietly. Chapter 4, Scene 3. Stand or burn. The Empire tightens its grip. Elsie stands before the world, choosing heart over legacy. Frankie discovers the footage. The game changes, but they don't play the card. Not yet. Not until the Villiers get drunk on their false victory. Back in the tool shed, Frankie wipes dirt from her hands, staring at the worn wooden table where she's laid out an old electrical panel. Wires. Dust. A blinking light. She frowns. Frankie muttering. Why is this even powered? She traces the line to a tucked-away digital recorder. Presses a button. Footage begins to play. Sound. Muffled screams. Arianda's room. Sophie's voice. The slap. The words. The punch. Then, Frankie entering the room. Grabbing Sophie's wrist. Frankie stares at it. Frozen. Frankie, softly. Oh my God. She steps back, her heart pounding, breath uneven. Then slowly, she smiles. In her room, Elsie stands by the window. Sleepless. Spine straight but soul unraveling. She's holding a photo of her and Arianda as kids. Smiling. Covered in dirt and roses. A knock. She turns. Frankie steps in. She looks charged. Frankie, smiling. We have a card. One they don't even know exists. Alesia wary. What kind of card? Frankie, holding up a flash drive. The truth. On camera. Time-stamped. Clear. Every. Damn. Word. Alesia's breath stutters. Why now? Frankie, sure. Because they think they've won. Let them parade. Let them drink champagne made of lies. And then, let us drown them in the truth. Elsie stares at her. Something darkly beautiful coils behind her eyes. Alesia, low, dangerous. Then we don't burn alone. We take their house down with us. The next morning in the newsroom. Sophie's lawyer stands at the podium, smug. Lawyer to press. The DeLuca sisters have built their empires on manipulation and deception. Miss Villiers is a victim of a calculated betrayal. Physically, emotionally, publicly. Snaps of camera shutters fill the air like machine gun fire. Elsie watches from the screen. She smiles. Not sad. Not broken. Ready. Frankie stands behind her. Frankie, smirking. Let them keep talking. They're building their gallows with every word. Elsie turns to her, eyes shining like steel in sunfire, and says, Then let's hand them the rope when they beg for the crown. Chapter 4, Scene 4. Garden of Fire. The garden. The press conference. The world. Arianda steps into the light, not as a victim, but as a mother, a survivor, DeLuca. The world watches. The tide turns. The Villiers blink for the first time. Elsie and Frankie stand behind her, not as shadows but pillars. The reckoning has a heartbeat, and it's female. The garden has never looked more alive. Sunlight weaves gold between the roses. The colors are sharp, unapologetic, like the women standing in the center of it. Arianda steps forward, elegant. Quiet fire. The baby cradled in her arms. A simple dress. No makeup. Hair down. Cameras flash. The world has shown up to watch her fall. They don't realize they've come to witness her rise. Frankie stands beside her. Silent. Steady. A storm wrapped in skin. Elsie stands on Arianda's other side. Head held high, eyes ice and lightning. Arianda to the crowd. My name is Arianda DeLuca. You may know me as the woman accused of lies, theft, and seduction. But I want to introduce myself properly. She adjusts the baby's blanket. Arianda continues. I am a mother, a sister, and I am not a liar. I am not a thief. And I sure as hell am not afraid of the Villiers. Gasps Ripple. A flicker of something in the press. Surprise. Interest. Arianda, voice steady. 2 months ago, I was beaten in this very house. While pregnant. By the woman who claimed to love my sister. While another woman held me down and watched. Arianda, stronger now. This is not a scandal. This is a crime. And we have it on camera. Silence. Dead. Complete. Elsie steps forward now, holding up a flash drive. Elysia, voice strong. This is the footage. It has been authenticated, time-stamped, and reviewed by legal authorities. You wanted a show. Here is the truth. The reporters erupt. Shouts. Questions. Microphones jostling. Frankie keeps her hand gently on Arianda's back, grounding her. Frankie, quietly. You're burning brighter than they ever imagined. Arianda exhales. And for the first time smiles. Arianda, to the press. You wanted to bury us. But you forgot something. Arianda, dead calm. We come from women who bloom in dirt. In the Villiers penthouse. Sophie stares at the broadcast. Silent. The footage begins to play. Her mother screams from another room. A phone rings. Attorneys scramble. Sophie just sits there, mascara streaked, and whispers to herself. Sophie gasps. What have I done? Chapter 4, Scene 5. Let them come. At Sophie's house, Elsie walks into the lion's den one last time, not for reconciliation but for reckoning. The truth has exploded. The media has turned. Sophie has nowhere left to hide. This is not revenge. It's closure. It's the weight of grace, wielded by a woman who could have burned the world, but instead lets it rot in its own lies. Rain slashes the windows. The once pristine home smells like old perfume in panic. Sophie sits in a silk robe on the couch, pale and cracked at the edges. Makeup from last night clings like a lie she can't wash off. The front door opens. Footsteps. Elsie enters, soaked from the storm. She doesn't shake off the water. She lets it drip, like she brought the storm with her. Sophie rises. Trembles. Sophie hoarse. Elsie, please. I didn't know. Elysia, calm, chillingly soft. You didn't care to know. You knew my sister's name. You knew her face. And you chose violence anyway. Sophie's hands shake. Sophie wavering. I thought she was. Elysia interrupting. A threat? To your bank account. Your last name? She steps forward, her voice like a knife. She was carrying life. And you struck her with hate. Sophie's breath catches. Sophie, desperate. I loved you, Elsie. Elysia, flat. No. You loved owning me. Elysia, dead calm. That was never love. That was convenience. Business. Image. Sophie crumbles to the couch, crying now. Sophie murmurs. What happens now? Elsie turns to the door. Elysia, without pause. You'll be tried. Not just in court, but in every room where truth still matters. She stops. Looks back. Elysia smirks. And if you're lucky one day, you'll grow something better from your ruin. She leaves. Sophie sobs alone. Outside, the rain keeps falling, but this time, it sounds like cleansing. Back at the estate, Arianda stands by the window holding her baby. Frankie steps into the room, fresh from the shower, towels slung around her shoulders. Elsie enters, soaked. Quiet. They all look at each other. Something has ended. Something else has begun. Elysia, softly. It's over. Arianda responds quick. No. It's beginning. A beat of silence. Then, the baby coos, just loud enough to make them laugh. Frankie pulls Elsie into a towel-wrapped embrace. No words. Just grounding. And for the first time in years, the storm outside feels like home. Chapter 5, Scene 1. The shape of peace. Weeks later, the estate has quieted. The press has moved on. But healing, that's a much louder journey. Frankie and Elsie meet in the garden again, for the first time without masks. Arianda watches from afar, smiling. The rebuilding begins, and so does something dangerously tender. The roses are in full bloom. Their petals deep and unapologetically red. Not soft, bold. Frankie kneels in the soil, hands dirty, planting fresh marigolds. Her tank top clings to her sun-warmed skin. Her back glistens with sweat. She hums to herself, low and earthy. Elsie walks toward her. Slowly, like approaching a fire you're not sure will warm or burn. Elysia, softly. You never told me you sing when you work. Frankie doesn't turn. Frankie shrugs. You never asked. Elsie kneels beside her, ruining her pristine pants without flinching. Elysia, softly. I'm asking now. Frankie glances sideways. Frankie, smiling. That sounds dangerously close to flirting, DeLuca. Elysia, smirking. Maybe I'm finally learning how. They sit in silence for a beat, only the breeze and bees between them. Elysia continues. You've been avoiding me. Frankie, quiet. I wanted you to come to me because you wanted to. Not because your world was falling apart. Elsie exhales like someone letting go of a decade of steel. Elysia with conviction. Then hear this with every intention I have. I want to. I want to sit in dirt with you. I want to touch you when it's not the end of the world. I want you. Frankie freezes, then slowly removes her gloves. Frankie, reverent. I've been waiting for you to say that. But I didn't wait with stillness. I waited with ache, with heat, and with hope that one day you'd choose me. They look at each other. No noise. No urgency. Just that bone-deep hum that happens when two souls lean in, finally unarmored. Elysia, barely a whisper. Then I choose you. In this garden. In this lifetime. And every one after. Frankie leans in, lips brushing Elysia's knuckles first. Reverent. Real. Then. A kiss. Not frantic. Not desperate. Just true. Like morning dew. Like thunder waiting patiently. Arianda stands at the balcony, baby in arms. She watches the women in the garden below. She smiles. Arianda to the baby. That, my love, is what power looks like. Not in force, but in the courage to be soft after being shattered. The baby gurgles. Arianda kisses her head. Behind her, the estate stretches like a fortress wrapped in flowers. And for once, peace doesn't feel like waiting for war. Chapter 5, Scene 2. We don't flinch. The estate receives an unexpected visitor. A legal threat from the Villiers, one last desperate attempt to claw back power. But this time, Elsie doesn't shield Arianda. She includes her. Together, they face the attack, Frankie by their side. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about sovereignty. The smell of coffee. Sunlight pouring in like liquid gold. Arianda sits cross-legged on the couch, baby dozing in a bassinet beside her. She's flipping through one of their mother's old gardening journals. Her fingers linger on a dried petal pressed between pages. Frankie enters, carrying a small box of croissants. Frankie excited. The bakery near the town square had a fresh batch. I risked life and traffic. Arianda, smiling. I'd kill for almond. Please tell me. Frankie, grinning. 3. Hidden like treasure. Before they can break bread, Elsie enters with her phone in her hand and war in her eyes. Elysia barks the words. We've been served. Arianda straightens. Arianda, questioning. By the Villiers? Elsie nods and tosses a thick envelope onto the table. Elysia, her voice still steel. Defamation of character, willful manipulation of business contracts, and calculated emotional damage. They're suing. Frankie scoffs, already flipping through the document. And spats. This reeks of desperation. They've got no real evidence. Just volume and bile. Elysia, surprised. I expected noise, not paperwork. Arianda folds the gardening book shut. Gently. Carefully. Arianda, clear voice. Then let's answer with clarity. I'll sign whatever affidavit you need. I'll testify. Let them try to bury us again. This time we brought shovels. Elysia, looking at her. I don't want to drag you through more courtrooms, Ari. Arianda, firm. You're not dragging me. I'm walking in beside you. Frankie places a hand on Arianda's shoulder. The touch is grounding, but also charged. There's an unspoken message there. You're not alone anymore. Frankie, murmuring. You two forget sometimes. You've already won. Elysia, bitter smile. Tell that to the press when the headline screams, DeLuca sued again. Arianda, softly, fiercely. Then let them scream. We'll whisper the truth until it becomes thunder. A messenger from the Villiers law firm waits, smug. He's holding a copy of the suit, thinking he's just dropped a bomb. The gate buzzes. Opens. Frankie walks out alone. Her walk is slow, deliberate. Frankie to him. Tell your clients. We receive the message. And we're still not flinching. She takes the document, rips it in half, then in half again, and again, drops the pieces at his feet. Frankie continues. Bring real fire next time. She turns, walks back inside. The sisters sit across from each other. Ailsie reviews files. Arianda feeds the baby. Frankie sharpens garden tools like she's prepping for war or therapy. There is peace in this moment, but it's a battle-worn peace. Alesia without looking up. If they keep pushing, we'll counter-sue. Arianda confident. No, we go one better. Ailsie raises an eyebrow. Arianda continues. We don't just fight back. We redefine the rules. Publicly. Elegantly. On our terms. Frankie grins from the other side of the room. Frankie, smiling. Damn. I love it when you two go full matriarch. Chapter 5, Scene 3. The Unspoken Garden. Late night. The estate sleeps, but Ailsie does not. She finds herself drawn to the garden again, restless. Frankie is already there as if she knew. They don't talk about the lawsuit. They talk about what hurts. And what heals. This is the moment that breaks the dam between them. The one that redefines love. The moon hangs low and swollen. Silver light spills across the garden like spilled secrets. Everything is quiet, but nothing is still. Ailsie walks barefoot over the dew-touched grass, a shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. She doesn't know why she's here. Only that she couldn't sleep. Not with everything pressing down on her chest like 1,000 whispered what-ifs. She steps through the garden paths until she sees her. Frankie, sitting cross-legged in the middle of a circle of candles. Dirt on her jeans. Hair wild. She's trimming dead leaves from a potted violet. Frankie, without looking up. You always pace when you're holding something in. Ailsie exhales. Half a laugh. Half a release. Alesia, softly. I don't know how to be still anymore. Frankie looks up. Frankie's voice is calm. You never did. Stillness isn't quiet. It's choice. And you've always been at war with your own. Ailsie sits down across from her, knees brushing dirt, not caring. Alesia sighs. When did you know? Frankie asks. About us? A nod. Frankie leans back on her hands, looking at the stars like they're witnesses. Frankie, confident. The moment you looked at me after Arianda collapsed. And your eyes didn't see staff. Or distraction. You looked at me like I was gravity. Like I could break you, and you'd let me. Alesia's eyes shimmer. Alesia, softly. You scare me, Frankie. Not because of what you could do to me, but because you already have, and I never felt more safe. Frankie leans in. And whispers. Then be scared. But don't run. Please don't run this time. A beat. Ailsie reaches out, hands trembling just slightly, and cups Frankie's jaw. Alesia, barely a whisper. I want to rest in you. Frankie closes the space between them with a kiss. Not rushed. Not urgent. But like a vow written in skin. A soft rebellion against every broken love they've ever endured. The kiss deepens, slow and molten. When they part, foreheads pressed together, Ailsie whispers. If we burn, let it be a slow fire, one we walk into. Together. Frankie nods, her voice cracked and reverent. I'll bring the matches. Back at the estate, Arianda stirs in her sleep, a small smile on her lips. The baby shifts against her chest. A whisper in the stillness. Arianda, half asleep. Took you long enough, Ollie. Chapter 5, Scene 4. Let the Empire roar. A formal hearing. Legal. Public. Orchestrated. The Villiers arrive smug, polished, convinced their legacy still holds weight. But Ailsie has brought her own kind of power, truth. And cameras. And one devastating video. Arianda's attack wasn't just survived, it was documented. And it's about to burn the Villiers' entire empire to the damn ground. The press buzzes just outside the tall glass doors. This is supposed to be a private arbitration, but the Villiers made it public the moment they filed the lawsuit. And now, the DeLuca name is everywhere. Inside, the room is pure marble and steel, cold, expensive, soulless. Sophie Villiers sits in a designer suit, all high cheekbones and venom. Beside her, her father, Cassius Villiers, gray-templed, smug, and twice as hollow, Across the table, Elsie, hair slicked back, no jewelry, no visible armor, only a black blouse and truth in her stormlit eyes. Arianda sits beside her, baby on her lap, silent and grounded like a goddamn monument. Frankie stands behind them both like a sentinel, shoulders wide, chin raised. Hearing officer, you've both been summoned to address the claims of slander and economic sabotage. Miss Villiers, your party may begin. Cassius leans in and says, the DeLuca sisters, though commendable survivors, have weaponized their story to malign my daughter's name and dismantle contracts that have been in place for decades. We demand damages for the collapse of our stake in the joint tech holdings. Elsie doesn't blink. Hearing officer, Miss DeLuca, your response. Elsie leans forward, her voice measured but lethal. You want the truth? I brought it with me. She gestures to the tech assistant by the monitor. Elysia says, play the video. The room darkens. The screen flickers to life. Surveillance footage, estate guest room. Timestamped. Clear. The video rolls. Arianda, sitting, holding the necklace. Then, Sophie bursts in. The slap. The words. You whore. The punch to the stomach. There's no sound in the boardroom now. Only the breathless silence of egos shattering like crystal underfoot. Sophie turns pale. Her father leans forward like he might faint. Elysia, cold, razor sharp. That is your truth. Not slander. Not manipulation. Documentation. She rises to her feet. Elysia cunt. If you wish to proceed legally, we welcome the courtroom. But know this. Should we enter it, this footage goes public. And the Villiers' name? It will not just fall. It will burn. Arianda, quietly, without looking at them. We survived worse than you. And we don't shake anymore. Frankie steps forward, places a file on the table. Frankie calmly. That's a counterclaim. For assault. For emotional trauma. For endangering a pregnant woman. Signed. Filed. And ready. The hearing officer clears his throat. Hearing officer. Based on this, we recommend both parties enter a full mediation. Privately. Elysia, cold. No. There will be no quiet backdoor deals. You wanted fire? You lit the match. Later that day at the press conference, Elsie steps in front of the cameras. No notes. No script. Elysia, voice strong. My name is Elsie DeLuca, and this empire was built on truth. We do not back down. We do not bow. And we do not break for anyone still stuck in the shadows. Beside her, Arianda, holding her daughter. Frankie, a hand resting at Elysia's back. Elysia, her voice calm. We rise. Together. Chapter 5, Scene 5. The bloom after the burn. 1 week after the hearing. The garden is fuller. Arianda's baby has a name. Elsie and Frankie take one last walk before the world demands their attention again. But this time, they do it as equals. The DeLuca Empire has roots now, deep, sacred roots. And they're unshakable. The golden hour kisses everything. Roses heavy with bloom. Marigolds stretch like fire reaching for the sky. A gentle breeze stirs the petals, and peace finally feels possible. Arianda sits under the willow tree, baby in her arms, humming an old lullaby their mother used to sing. Frankie finishes securing a small plaque into the soil by the garden's heart. The DeLuca Garden of Remembrance. For all we lost. For all we've become. Elsie walks over, carrying a basket of fresh lavender and mint. She kneels beside Frankie and asks softly, That was your idea, wasn't it? Frankie shrugs. You needed roots. I just helped you see them. Elsie places a hand on her cheek, thumb brushing the line of her jaw. Elysia soft. You don't just see me, Frankie. You remind me. Frankie leans into the touch. Her voice low. You're allowed to rest, you know. The war is over. Elysia softly. No. The war changed. And now we fight for joy. For softness. For love that doesn't come with conditions. Behind them, Arianda calls out. Hey! Don't get all poetic without me. They laugh. That rich, exhausted laughter that only survivors share. Arianda, smiling. She has a name, by the way. Wanna know? They both turn to her, holding their breath. Arianda lifts the tiny sleeping bundle and says, Arianda, proudly. Rosalie Franca de Luca. Frankie freezes. Her mouth parts slightly. Frankie, surprised. You didn't. Arianda, teasing. I did. Try and fight me about it. Frankie kneels beside her, touches the baby's hand. Her own eyes welling. Frankie whispers, I'll guard her with my last breath. Alesia agrees. We all will. The three women sit together in the garden. Not talking. Not planning. Just being. The sun dips below the horizon. But the warmth stays. The estate is quiet. A single light glows in the study where Ailsie types a letter. Behind her, Frankie wraps her arms around her waist and kisses the back of her neck. And asks, What are you writing? Alesia strong. A new mission statement. One that actually reflects us. She slides the letter toward her. Frankie reads aloud. We are not built from profit. We are built from protection. From legacy. From the kind of power that blooms, ferocious and free. Alesia soft. It's time the world knows who we are. They look at each other. And this time, no doubts. No distance. Only the future. Chapter 6. When the world strikes back. A hazy morning. Fog wraps the estate. Quiet, too quiet. But somewhere on the outskirts of the world, enemies regroup. A new threat brews. Ailsie senses it before the call comes. The sky outside is silver gray, the garden hidden beneath a morning mist. Ailsie sits at her desk, fingers resting on the edge of a coffee cup long gone cold. The newspaper in front of her is folded precisely to a single headline. Villiers Holdings investigated for financial fraud. Ailsie de Luca's explosive counterclaims spark wider probe. She should feel victorious. She doesn't. There's a tightness behind her eyes. An ache she can't name. The kind that whispers something's coming. The door creaks open behind her. Frankie soft. Morning, Storm Queen. You didn't sleep again. Alesia hesitant. Couldn't. Something's off. Frankie sighs. The calm before something. Ha! Ailsie nods. Turns the paper toward her. Alesia continues. The Villiers are bleeding. But they're not dead. And rats. They only get more vicious when cornered. Frankie comes around the desk and perches on its edge. And assures her. Then we sharpen blades and watch the gates. No one gets through without tasting fire. Alesia smirking slightly. Have I told you lately that I'm wildly, dangerously in love with your mind? Frankie leans down, lips brushing Alesia's temple. And whispers. Not lately. But I like the sound of it. Want me to fortify security? Alesia sure. Triple it. And call Torres. We need eyes in every direction. The baby's cry pierces through the corridor, sharp and sudden. Both women freeze. Ailsie is already on her feet. Arianda rocks little Rosalie slowly, but her face is pale. Haunted. Arianda whispers. I had a dream. There was fire again. And someone in the garden. Watching. Frankie tenses. You think it was a dream? Arianda unsure. I don't know. But I felt it. Something is coming. Ailsie takes Rosalie gently and holds her tight to her chest. Alesia whispers. Then let them come. She looks to her sister, to Frankie, then down at the baby. Calm now, safe in her arms. Alesia continues. This time, we don't just survive. Frankie responds. No. This time we win. Chapter 6, Scene 2. The lioness wakes. In the Villiers private estate, boardroom. They think they've cornered the De Lucas with a final blow. Press leaks, bribed officials, forged evidence. But they forgot. Frankie wired the entire estate with discreet surveillance after the first attack. What they're walking into is a trap. A dark, opulent room. Red velvet chairs, crystal glasses, and 3 smug devils in expensive suits. Sophie Villiers lounges back in her chair, swirling bourbon like it's blood. Sophie sarcastic. The press will run it at dawn. Ailsie de Luca, accused of embezzlement, coercion, and falsifying hospital records. With signatures. Proof. Everything. Villiers patriarch chuckling. They built an empire on sentiment. Sentiment doesn't survive war. A slow clap interrupts them. Alesia calm. No. But strategy does. They turn. The doors swing wide. Ailsie de Luca walks in. Black suit. Crimson lips. Behind her, Frankie. silent, deadly, and flanking them, 2 attorneys and Torres, their cyber investigator. The room chills 10 degrees. Elysia mocking. Funny thing about forging signatures. You really should make sure the cameras aren't watching while you're doing it. Frankie drops a black case on the table. Frankie, her voice carries conviction. Surveillance footage. All of it. You, Sophie, instructing the notary. You, bribing the journalist. You, accessing Arianda's medical files. Sophie smirking. None of that is admissible. You can't. Attorney 1. It's legal. It was filmed on our private estate. And the footage was voluntarily submitted by our security chief, Ms. Olivetti. Torres, cool and calm. And cross-referenced with time-stamped, encrypted backups. Already filed with 2 courts. And leaked. Just to keep things spicy. Elysia leaning forward. The only thing you accomplished was reminding me how far I'm willing to go to protect my blood. She reaches into her coat, pulls out a red rose, and smirks. This is for your grave, Villiers legacy. We're done playing nice. She tosses the rose onto the table. Frankie turns as Ailsie walks out. Frankie smirking. Oh, and just a tip. Next time bring an army. Because this family is war incarnate. They leave. The Villiers sit in stunned silence. Then, the sound of phones vibrating. Non-stop. A firestorm unleashed. In the car, Ailsie sits in the back, her hand tight around Frankie's. Elysia smiling. That was checkmate, wasn't it? Frankie, breathless. No, amore. That was just the opening move. Chapter 6, Scene 3. The blood that binds. Rain taps on the windows. A soft storm. Arianda sits near the fireplace, wrapped in a cream shawl. Rosalie sleeps in a bassinet beside her. The doorbell rings. Margaret answers it, hesitating. Margaret, unsure. Ari, there's someone here. Says she's family. Arianda rises slowly. The firelight casts flickering shadows as she walks to the door. In the entry stands a woman, early 40s, sharp-featured, grief-worn eyes. Her name is Marta. Marta, excited. Arianda. Silence. Arianda, surprised. Marta, I thought you left the country. Marta, urgently. I did. I almost stayed gone. But something's come up. Something you need to know. They sit. Marta pulls out a folded letter, aged, yellowed at the edges. Marta, softly. My brother, your husband, he was investigating something before the crash. Villiers Holdings. Corruption. Embezzlement. Money laundering through overseas shells. He kept everything in this. She slides the letter and a USB drive across the table. Marta continues. His death wasn't an accident, Ari. It was a hit. The brake lines were tampered with. Arianda covers her mouth. Silent sobs escaping through her fingers. Arianda whispers. I thought it was a drunk kid on a phone. Marta sighs again. That's what they made you believe. But he was silenced. And now they want to do the same to you because you carry his name. His baby. His proof. The room sways for a moment. Then, footsteps. Ailsie enters, followed by Frankie. Both alert, protective. Elysia asks. I heard the bell. Who is this? Marta, quickly. I'm Marta, her sister-in-law. I'm here to end the lie that's kept her in chains. A beat. Ailsie moves beside Arianda, hand on her shoulder, and assures her, whatever this is, we'll face it. Together. Frankie takes the USB. Frankie, quickly. I'll run this through my team. If it's real, we'll bury them in their own dirt. Arianda, voice cracking. I just wanted to raise my child in peace. Elysia, firm. Then we'll carve peace out of chaos. For you. For Rosalie. For every woman they tried to silence. Marta starts to cry. Years of grief and guilt pouring from her. Frankie, surprisingly gentle, places a tissue in her hand. Frankie, soft. Welcome to the war, Marta. You picked the right side. Chapter 6, Scene 4. The Architect of Shadows. Truth doesn't whisper anymore. It walks in combat boots. Ailsie digs into the past she never dared to question, and finds out that the woman beside her has war in her blood and silence as a weapon. Ailsie stands in front of her desk. Torres sits across from her, laptop open, fingers flying. He looks nervous. Torres, formal. You asked me to dig into the surveillance backup logs. But I pulled a wrong thread, boss. And it unraveled more than you know. He spins the laptop toward her. Torres continues. Frankie Olivetti doesn't exist before 2012. No paper trail. No school records. No bank data. But I traced a decrypted alias through 3 international servers. Elysia Flat. And he hesitates. Then clicks. A profile flashes across the screen. Name, Francesca Orlova. Status, classified former operative. Clearance, tier black. Intelligence/extraction/close combat. Last known contract, dismantle syndicate in Prague, Villiers affiliated. Torres quiet. She was in Black Ops, Lysia. Government ghost type. She was the one who dismantled the Prague laundering ring. Villiers assets vanished overnight. Elysia whispers. That's why she came here. Her breath catches. Images flash across the screen. Frankie in tactical gear. Bloodied. Alive. Eyes hollow. Holding a child in one photo. Burning files in another. Torres continues. My guess. She came here to disappear. Until she found you. Until she found us. In the garden shed, Frankie wipes dirt off her hands. The stars blink above like tiny secrets. Elsie walks in. No words, just fire in her eyes. Frankie, without turning. You know. Elysia softly. I do. Why didn't you tell me? Frankie finally turns. Her face unreadable, but her eyes, they ache. Frankie, inhale slowly. Because when you offered me this job, this life, I felt safe for the first time in years. And safe people don't come with kill records. Elsie steps closer. Her voice is low. Electric. You saved my sister. My child. My home. Don't you ever hide your fire from me again. Frankie quietly. I burn, Elsie. I don't simmer. You let me in. I scorch everything. Elsie cups her jaw, soft but unrelenting. Elysia whispering. Then burn with me. But never in silence again. They hold that breath. That ache. That truth. Frankie leans forward, her forehead resting against Elysia's. Frankie, softly. I'd set the world on fire for you. But I'll build you a kingdom instead. Chapter 6, final scene. The legacy of queens. The estate, rooftop balcony, dusk. The sisters, Frankie, Torres. The inner circle. Plans are forming. Bonds are stronger than ever. And the next move? It belongs to the DeLucas. The garden sprawls below like a sleeping beast. Lights twinkle across the grounds. The air is still. Arianda holds Rosalie close, the baby's breath soft against her collarbone. She looks lighter. Healing. Her eyes, however, are steel. Elsie stands beside her. Frankie leans against the railing. Torres flips through a tablet. Torres assuring them. With the evidence from Marta, the surveillance, and our new witness, we could go nuclear. Take down the entire Villiers syndicate in one blow. Elysia smirks. Not yet. Let them think they've survived. Let them breathe. She turns to Arianda. Elysia soft. You'll be safe. We'll make sure of it. Arianda cuts in. No, Ollie. We'll make sure of it. I may be a mother now, but I'm still a DeLuca. She presses a kiss to Rosalie's brow. Arianda continues. And she'll grow up never knowing fear. Only legacy. A wind rustles through the trees below. Frankie steps forward, glancing at Elsie, and says, Then let's give her a legacy that burns bright. Elsie looks at each of them. Her circle, her family, her army. Elysia cool. The Villiers wanted to erase us, but they forgot who we are. She lifts her glass. Wine as red as war. Elysia continues. To the empire reborn. To bloodlines that bloom like roses. And to queens who never bow. They all raise their glasses. Even Rosalie gurgles, as if knowing she was born into fire. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Hit subscribe button and knock that notification bell because Elsie and Frankie's story continues. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will respond with a story to fill your needs.